Hi guys, welcome back to Z's Corner. This is Zao. So after my last series on the Augur, I got a lot of requests to kind of do a series of videos on the Enterprise. So here I am with my Enterprise. I have a Max Enterprise. It was one of my first. It was my first G3 Epic, and I really loved the ship. And I used her well into my 40s. Well, I actually until 42 when I got the Kelvin out. But even with the Kelvin, I think I used the Enterprise quite a bit for the TCs because she still performs pretty well against generic crew setups. And I think that was one of the comments that was pointed out. So in any case, you know, I've got the Enterprise pulled up on here. I've got the TOS skin on her. She looks really nice. She looks really pretty from the original series. I think better than the original series. I think the original series ones didn't look as nice as the ships that they made in the game. And it's funny to me that her engines are on and pushing when I'm in dock. Ha! She's trying to push against the space dock. Anyway, that's just one of those quirks that I just noticed now. But anyway, in this series, we're going to look at the USS Enterprise against 3 foes. They're all G4 UNCs. So against all 4 of the G4 UNCs, I go up against the Kelvin, the Valdore, and the Ktinga. And they're all T4, T5 type ships. So if they're not too high to the point where I stand absolutely no chance, they're at a tier range where I can still conceivably defeat them with the right crew setups. So we'll kind of go into some of those battle logs in this video. And before we go into that, I wanted to point out real quick that in my last video I said I think there was no good officer for Klingon to use against Klingons that boosts attack damage values, except for Tomalak, who is new, and I was wrong on that. So thank you for pointing that out to me. The attack officer actually is Lenar. He's a uncommon Romulan officer, and we'll pull him up right now, just so we can see. And I gotta find him somehow. Hold on, this might be a while. Lenar. Oh, right there. So yeah, so his officer ability is actually a +% attack, and he's the same as the others. So him max is 500% attack, 500%, and it's based off the crew's attack. So I will be using him on the Enterprise, and I will be also in a later video. I'll be looking at how he does on the Augur against the Ktinga again, since I have the right officer. So we'll look at that in a bit. But anyway, for today's video, we're going to focus on the USS Enterprise and how she performs versus the G4 UNCs. So before we jump into the battle logs of the Enterprise, I wanted to kind of address some of the comments that I've been getting in regards to my research and how much my research, my ops level is really affecting the battle results. And I agree with it in part, okay, and because I do have better research than a lot of people, and that better research is giving me more damage, it's giving me better mitigation. I have a lot more officers to use, much better officers than most of the players. But what you need to keep in mind is that I'm not making the comparison of me versus you, and if you can replicate these results versus those same types of ships. What I'm making is more of kind of a max type hypothesis and looking at just the ships. So what I mean by that is that my last video series focused on the Augur, and now my video series is going to focus on the Enterprise. So when I'm comparing to myself, of course I have the same research, same ops level, and all that fun stuff. And actually, you know, my Enterprise research, my Explorer research is actually a little bit better than my Augur research. So as we jump into this series, it's a much more, I guess, better comparison for you to kind of look at my claims when I said the Augur was potentially the best, you know, G3 Epic PvP ship, and how that really plays out over time. So I wanted to kind of clarify that because I've had a lot of comments around the research, and it's not that I disagree with you. It's just that it's from what perspective we're looking at, and hopefully this is kind of showing you that, you know, eventually as you max these ships and as you progress in research, what can you really accomplish, and, you know, it answers the question as to whether or not they're really, you know, the best ships. All right, so in this battle log, I've got Reaper crewing with Yuki as captain. I asked her to kind of crew with her generic PvP crew in the first fight that in our series of fights, and Yuki captain obviously is not really going to work against the Enterprise, so I asked her to change in later fights. But here, this is her kind of her general crewing, and she's got Marcus on, which is very nice for anti-explorer, and HE Worf for the critical hits. So I've got Khan in this case because I'm fighting an interceptor for the hull breach proc and the accuracy. I've got him as captain. I've got Kirk on the side to kind of maintain my shield, my forever shield on the Enterprise, and I've got HG Worf right here to help with my own critical hits. And you can see overall I win. It went, longer rounds because it's the Enterprise and it's not doing that much damage, although it's not bad. Right off the bat, I'm doing 1.2, 1.4, well, 1.3, 1.4 million critical hits, 1.38. The Kelvin is actually being out damaged by me in round 1 because it's only doing about 600,000 damage to me. It kind of makes up the difference in round 2 because it fires so often. But even in round 2, I'm doing decent critical hit damage, 1.4, 1.3, and then my big guns hit 1.7, 1.9, basically. So yeah, my big guns hit towards the end of round 6, and then it blew up. So again, this was kind of the base test. I asked everybody to test with me to use their normal PvP crews. In this case, unfortunately, it was Yuki, so it didn't really work out so well for Reaper. All right, in this scenario, I asked Reaper to kind of use TOS O'Hara as captain to kind of counter my my Worf to basically to see if I could still win. And I'm actually surprised here that I actually won, and it's mostly thanks to Khan. So if we take a look here, and it's funny here because Khan did not trigger hull breach, and because he didn't trigger hull breach, I'm actually doing less damage. So I was very unlucky because I have an 80% chance to trigger hull breach with Khan captain. As you can see in this Battlelog versus the previous one, I'm doing significantly less damage, where I was critical hitting for 1.2 million. I'm only doing 300,000 damage here, and the Kelvin's hitting me pretty hard at 650,000. So I got lucky in round 2. Looks like I had some critical hits in round 2 because his TOS were harder than proc. And then we're going to keep going back and forth. Basically, my forever shield is keeping me alive, and it's actually allowing me to survive past when HG Worf really works, because HG Worf only works for the first 8 rounds. And I just kind of whittled down and outlasted the Kelvin because of my shields and because of the forever shield on the Enterprise, and the Kelvin just couldn't, doesn't have a forever shield and just eventually died. But it was a pretty close call. I'd say with that much hull left that it could have gone either way depending on lucky hits or whatever. So it was a pretty close call in this case. All right, so this one in this Battlelog I had Reaper crew specifically to be kind of anti-explorer, and this is with Krell captain. So you see with Krell captain, 30% chance for a hull breach. That increases the damage that's being dealt by HG Worf. HG Worf is here for the critical hits, and then Marcus is here for the shield penetration. And you see that I do not even get close to beating the Kelvin in this scenario. So despite me doing critical hits, he just out-damages me, basically. So I'm doing 1.2, 1.3. He's doing 1.4. You can see that hull breach, when it procs, it really increases damage, because remember, before he was only 900,000 critical hit damage. 900,000 is about 1 million, I guess. Now he's up to 1.4 million. 1.4, but this when I get hit with multiple 1 million plus, in addition to Marcus lowering my basic mitigation, I'm just not going to survive very long. So in any case, I die very quickly in this scenario. So in this case, I was trying with TOS O'Hara and TOS Kirk to counter his Reaper's HG Worf, and I still have Khan on here. So I'm not going to be doing any critical hits because Reaper's got TOS O'Hara captain as well, yet I'm going to have more hull damage because of Khan. So let's see how this works. So, in this case, I just outlast I outlast them. 18 rounds. This went for a long... We're not going to go through all 18 rounds, but this went out for a long, long time. And the Forever Shield on the Enterprise is just... I guess that's the motto. So, as the motto goes, keeps her going. I went for 18 rounds. That's impressive to me. All right, so in this battle log, I've got my Enterprise against Ganono's Valdore. And thank you to Ganono for helping me do some tests with the Enterprise today. So he's got a T4 Valdore with just the shield and hull upgrades, I believe, and against my Max Enterprise. And right off the bat, you see that this is probably not going to really go too well for me, because I've got my strongest, or what I believe is the strongest anti-Romulan explorer crew that I can field on the Enterprise. So I've got Yuki Captain. Yuki with Marcus's synergy is doing negative 15% of shield health at the end of the opponent's turn. And in addition to that, she's giving the 500% bonus damage to the Romulans. Marcus, of course, is the shield pierce to kind of to allow me to deal more hull damage directly to the Valdore. And I've got Kelvin Kirk right now as the captain, just to kind of perpetuate my Forever Shield. And my Kirk is max, so he's got an 80% chance to inspire morale for the Enterprise. And Ganono, I actually asked him to crew specifically anti-Federation Explorer. So anti-Enterprise, really. We've got Krell captain here. When he's captain, he procs hull breach 30% of the time when receiving shield health damage, and he's got the 500% bonus damage based on the crew's defense to Federation ships. He's got Marcus. He has a max Marcus as well to deal more hull damage to counter the shield deflection on the Enterprise, and then he's got HG War for the critical hits. So we'll jump into the details right here. You see the officers are proccing. I'm doing decent damage when I crit, about 1.3 million. I'm doing 200,000 in hull. He's doing a bit less than that with his crits, because his crits are a bit lower. It's just a million critical hits. He crits on all four. We go 4 rounds, so it's really unlucky for me that I'm not really critical hitting at all in the second round. So that kind of explains part of the reason why I didn't kill the Valdore. And you see, all right, he's got his critical hits, his big guns fired, and his big guns are doing a lot more damage to me. 2.5 million, 2.3 million. I'm doing, wow, I still didn't critical hit. That's crazy. So I critical hit over there, 1.3, 1.4. Continuing on, I just don't last past his second time his big guns fired back up in round 4. So I did it. I think I actually did put up a pretty good fight against the Valdore when it's crewed specifically anti-Enterprise. It's not too bad because again, these type of crews aren't going to be that common in takeovers anyway. So but it got through, I'd say, like almost half. We can take a look real quick at his health. He's got 6 million shield health and 7 million hull health. For me, you can disregard the shield health, 4 million and then 3 million. So he's got more than twice my hull health. So I guess on a 1.1 1-per-1 basis, I was doing okay. I just didn't have enough hull health to kind of outlast that Valdore. So in this battle log, I swapped out. The only change I made was I put HG Worf in here instead of Marcus to proc critical hits, because, well, now I remember that the reason why I wasn't critical hitting as much in that first battle log was because I didn't have HG Worf on. And that's really one of the weaknesses of the Enterprise, is that one officer slot on the bridge has to be sacrificed for you to maintain your Forever Shield, or else you go kaput pretty quickly. In this case, I've got HG Worf to kind of do the critical hits, and you can see I did a little bit better than last time. So, whereas last time I only took out about 3 million of the Valdore's health, hull health, this time I took out 4 million of the Valdore's hull health, and Ganono's crew is unchanged. Let's take a look at the battle log. The officers are proccing. You can see right off the bat I'm doing actually a lot more in terms of critical damage, 1.8 million, 1.7 million in critical hit damage. However, note that my hull health damage directly to the Valdore is actually a bit less because I don't have Marcus on. I'm only at 140,000 hull health damage despite a 1.8 million critical hit. If we recall from the first battle log, I was doing about 1.2, 1.3 million critical hits. Yet I was doing over 200,000 hull health damage, and that's purely because of not having Marcus on the Enterprise. You can see the Valdore's pretty much constant, doing about 1 million in critical hit damage. So, you know, even here, you know, we're hitting. My only chance, I guess, is to try and outlast him a bit because I've got the forever shield. If I can whittle through the Valdore shields and I can continue on my critical hits, then I would stand a pretty good chance. So we're keep going. I haven't gone through a shield. I only got through shields in round 4, and that's a little bit too late. So, and you know, my guns are firing. Yet, you know, even without shields, the Valdore's base mitigation is actually pretty high, and that's because I don't have Marcus, and this is kind of just the reason why I die. So, you know, not enough hull health, and not having Marcus because of Kirk there. So, you know, that's how this battle ended. So in this test, I used TOS Kirk as captain. I did TOS Spock on the side on the bridge with HJ Worf. Basically, I was going for both damage and mitigation a little bit because remember, TOS Kirk as captain with TOS Spock synergy, I've got 100% of officer's bonus energy weapon damage, and it's cumulative. HJ Worf for the critical hit procs, and then I've got Spock here that does minus 70%, 75% to the opponent's critical hit damage when you have morale. I actually did way worse than before, and this is probably because I don't have Marcus on here, and Spock is not near high enough level to mitigate all the damage that he's been doing to me. So, and I don't have Yuki on here to kind of eat through his shield. So without Yuki on here to kind of help give me that 15% or 10% boost per round against the shields, I don't have enough that damage output. Is basically what's happening. So let's take a look at the battle log. We see the officer proccing. You see him doing less damage, about 960, 900, 970 in terms of critical hit damage. Yet I'm only doing about 70, 75,000 in hull damage. Spock is working. Remember before he was at 1 million critical hit damage. Now he's at 700,000. So he's doing less critical hits, but I'm not doing enough damage. So this is going to kind of drag on for a bit until I go kaput because of his big guns firing basically, and his Marcus basically lowering my mitigation. So I do okay. I guess I went a bit further in round 5. The problem is my damage output was still too low for me to be able to get through the Valdore shields and hull at the same time. All right, so for the last series of tests that I did with the Enterprise, I asked George to come and play with his T5 Ktinga. So I've got the Enterprise versus the Ktinga, which is the G4 UNC Klingon battleship here. And you can see right off the bat, George crewed incorrectly, so I actually won. And I did it with TOS Kirk as captain because I wanted the cumulative weapon damage that Kirk gives me, in addition to him proccing morale for the Forever Shield on the Enterprise. I've got Charvonic to lower his mitigation, and I've got Lennar, which is a newly discovered officer again for me, to kind of increase damage against Klingon ships. And George's got Krell captain to help proc Hull Breach. Again, when Hull Breach is procced, I get more critical hit damage done to me, and he's got H.G. Worf to kind of help with that. And then he's got Kong, which is incorrect. He should have used Marcus here for anti-explorer. And we'll get to that in a few other rounds where actually he does use that type of crew. So, one of the issues with having the Enterprise is that one of your officer slots, again, is going to be always taken up by a morale officer. And that's why I just can't have H.G. Worf on the ship, which is unfortunate for me. But again, I've got some of the nicer research, so my base critical hit is still pretty high. It's actually, if we look here, you see that my base critical hit chance is 22%, whereas George does not have the same research that I do, so I've got 10% more base critical hit chance than he does. His base critical hit chance is only 12%. So with that, let's take a look at the Battlelog real quick. Goes on for 8 rounds. Again, the morale is prolonging the fights. So you see the officers are proccing. I'm doing decent damage, 550,000. I got a really good critical hit here for 1.4 million damage, and you can see that, you know, his mitigation has lowered quite a bit because I'm doing significant damage to his shield and hull. He's doing about 500,000, 600,000 crit, and then after Krell procs, you can see Krell crocking right here. After Krell crocs, he does significant more damage to me, 950,000. So that's like almost, you know, like a third or more damage to me that's been done. So again, we keep going. My critical hits and my hits to his hull and shield right there are really gonna start hurting him a lot. You know, he's hitting me for quite a bit as well. But my forever shield and the lack of having the correct mitigation officer on his part is really helping me out. So as we can see, in the end, I basically out-damage him. And there goes, what is this, round 4? Round 4, the Ktinga shields go. And after that, I don't get many critical hits, which is kind of the issue why it went 8 rounds, I guess. If I had gotten some more critical hits, then he would have died pretty quick. So, you know, even for the last 3 rounds or so, even without having critical hits, the Ktinga dies because of him having the wrong anti-mitigation officer. All right, so here I asked Jor to change to Marcus and not Khan, which is the correct combo. And even in this case, actually, this outcome surprised me a little bit because I almost killed him. He only had 1 million hull health left. And if we take a look at that, we'll see why. So let's jump into the Battlelog real quick. So the officers are proccing. I'm doing nice critical hit damage. He's doing some nice critical hit damage. Again, you can see that, you know, even with the non-crits, my hull health that I receive is significantly more than what I was receiving before. So whereas I was getting like 25,000 hull health damage done, now I'm getting 51,000. It's like double. So having the right, you know, anti-mitigation officer is crucial in this case. So let's see, we're going 6 rounds. I'm critical hitting. He's critical hitting. Did he get? Yeah, he got a pretty nice critical hit on his big guns, but that's not too bad. So towards the end, I think I guess I did really well because I got some pretty lucky critical hit procs. Yeah, a bit more than I would expected. You know, this is the bottom 2 hits are my big guns for the Enterprise. I'm doing 1.8 million damage, so that's not bad. I proc more critical hits. Yeah, this one right here, this 6 shots really hurt me and killed me, basically, I think. So, yeah. So after that, I died real quick from his guns. So, you know, close, but no cigar. So what happens if we kind of change it up? Instead of having Lennar on the bridge, I'm going to throw HG Worf on the bridge. So actually, you know, with HG Worf, I'm sacrificing the extra damage that I get from Lennar for having the critical hits. So in this case, I actually won against the triangle, surprisingly, I guess, won against the triangle with a specific anti-Federation explorer crew that Jor had. And this is a bit of a surprise to me. It's kind of like how I won with the Augur against the Kelvin in my other video. So, you know, the Enterprise actually really did a lot better than I would have expected here. And let's take a look at the Battlelog to see why. So we have the officers proccing. You can see right off the bat that I do a lot less damage. I'm only at about 830,000 damage, whereas I was at like 1.3, 1.4, or 1.5 million with Lennar. So I'm doing less damage, yet I'm doing consistent damage. So I think over time, I guess this actually equals to higher percent damage than what I was doing before with Lennar, because of not having HG Worf. My lower critical hit rate was really kind of hurting me. So we can see how this goes. It goes again 6 rounds. It went a lot, whereas before you see I'm critical hitting basically every single time. The Ktinga is not doing too bad. A bit less, quite a bit less than I do. On his big guns, he critical hit twice, so that's not too bad. In round 2, I've critical hit almost every single round. Round 3, the first shot in round 3 is the first one I haven't critical hit in. I think. Let me check in round 1 because I forgot round 1. Yeah, round 1, all crits. Round 2, all crits. Round 3, the first shot in round 3 was the first time I didn't critical hit, so that was good for me. So again, you know, we look at this and you see that I'm whittling away at the Ktinga and these 2 critical hits right here with my big guns, 1.2 million, 1.25 million. That did quite a bit of damage to him. And he didn't critical hit here almost at all in round 5, and that really kind of helped me survive. So with round 6, he dies with my other 2, with my 2 big guns at the end. So you know, this result really surprised me. I guess HG Worf is a better choice than, let's say, the damage officers, because you get that consistent critical hits. And here I actually just reran the same test with the exact same crew against George, just to see what how much RNG has to do with it. And I'll tell you right now, the RNG gods have a lot to do with it, because whereas before I won, you know, with a decent amount of health left, I lost significantly this time. I only got through 3 million of his hull, so this is kind of crazy to me. I only went for 5 rounds in the 6 rounds. And why is that? It's because of the critical hits. I mean, I'm just not critical hitting. You see the first round, I'm not critical hitting. I get critical hit by the Ktinga quite a bit. And then worse than that is that, you know, I think in round 2, yeah, I'm pretty sure in round 2 I lost Kirk. Kirk has an 85, TOS Kirk has an 85 base % chance to proc morale, and I did not get that in round 2. So that means I'm getting significant damage dealt to my shields. And here I actually only critical hit once too in round, well, no, I critical hit 3 times in round 2, so that wasn't too bad. Kirk kicks back in round 3, yet my shields got depleted there, which, you know, doesn't happen too often with the Enterprise. Again, round 4, you know, Kirk does not work, so again I get hit. And round 5, Kirk doesn't proc, and I get hit. And here, I just die. So I died mostly because of some of the proccing issues, I guess, with TOS Kirk. In this case, my critical hits were somewhat consistent, so I have nothing to complain about that. But, you know, when the RNG gods decides to not be in your favor, it has quite a significant impact on how you perform. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for this video series on the USS Enterprise and how she performs against the G4 Uncommons. In summary, you know, she had mixed performance against the Kelvins, and it was a bit disappointing to me because I would have expected better performance against the Kelvins, especially since it's with the triangle. I did not win at all against the Valdore, which was kind of sad to me, but you know, I've always kind of said the Valdore is the best of the G4 Uncommons, so maybe that proves it. I don't know. We'll have to look at that ship in more detail sometime later. And then, you know, surprisingly to me, she actually performed well against the Ktinga. And she performed well when the Ktinga was specifically crewed for anti-Federation Explorer, so anti-Enterprise, basically. And that was very, very surprising to me. So, you know, it's kind of following a little bit of a trend where, you know, against the G4 Uncommons, it seems so far, I mean, the Augur performed very well against the Kelvin, and the Enterprise has performed very well against the Ktinga. So it's kind of like saying, you know, against the Triangle, maybe the G3 epics are the way to go to kill G4 uncommon ships. I don't know. I don't have a D4 yet, but I'm going to explore a bit more into getting one, or at least borrowing one from someone, max D4, and see how that ship performs against, let's say, the Valdore or some of the other G4 uncommons. We'll do a video series on that a bit later as well. So again, thanks for tuning in, and if you're not a subscriber already, please hit the subscribe button. If you have any issues or any comments, please feel free to leave comments below, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.